Ladies and gentlemen, our next panel, titled 50 Years Later, What AI Might Become, will be moderated by Martin Rasser, Senior Advisor for Economy at SCSP. Please welcome our speakers, Amy Nordrum, Executive Editor at MIT Tech Review, and Peter Singer, Co-founder and Managing Partner at Useful Fiction.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So great to see you here. Very excited about this panel. We have two amazing guests, Amy Nordrum and Peter Singer. So let's start with maybe a quick introduction and tell everyone, some of the amazing stuff that you've done in your career so far, and then we'll dive right in. Amy.
Well, I'd be delighted to. Thank you for the invitation. Hi, I'm Amy. I work at MIT Technology Review, which is a publication owned by MIT, but editorially independent from MIT. So we don't cover MIT's activities. We cover the broader world of emerging technology. We write about things like artificial intelligence and biotech and computing and robotics. It's a super interesting job. I love it. I came into it with a background in journalism, but always with a focus on science and technology, the topic I love thinking and learning most about. And I also have an MBA from New York University's Stern School of Business, which has become increasingly useful in covering technology because the intersection of that and business is what really makes the difference a lot of times in which technologies actually work out in reality and make their way into the real world. These days, a few of the things I manage in my role are a couple of our annual lists that we put together. We have one that comes out every year called 10 Breakthrough Technologies and another one called Innovators Under 35, recognizing young entrepreneurs and researchers. So yeah, a big mix of things, and looking forward to this discussion.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Peter.
So first, thanks for inviting me. I also have to say I'm incredibly jealous of all of you. This is the very first event I've been at where the people on stage have far worse chairs than everyone in the audience. So Peter Singer, basically wear two hats. I work at New America, which is a nonpartisan think tank here in Washington, D.C., particularly focus on technology and national security and future trends. And then the second, as was referenced, lead an organization called Useful Fiction. And what we do is work with organizations to figure out how to tell the story of the important real-world topics that they're working on. So we were talking about it earlier. Essentially, we help partners that range from DARPA to the U.S. Air Force to Fortune 500 companies turn their strategies, their tech reports, their training manuals into smoothies. So basically take the fruit and vegetables of the nonfiction and figure out how to wrap it into an engaging story scenario. And so paralleling that, have authored books, both nonfiction books on cybersecurity, robotics, AI, but also novels that were useful fictions that were designed to both entertain, but also educate along the way.
Great. Yeah, we had a phenomenal conversation in the green room before we came over here, which actually wish we had cameras rolling. That would have been fun as an addition, like a little bonus reel. But so, Amy, from your perspective at MIT Technology Review, what do you see as a technical reality that just isn't getting enough attention right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time to be alive right now is the first thing I will say. It's never boring. And there is no surprise to anybody in this room, a huge amount of interest in artificial intelligence, which is great for us. We've seen our coverage of this topic get a lot of attention for years now. But there's also a lot of hype in this space, and a lot of the companies that are out there extolling their models and the capabilities of these models and talking about all the things that they can do and how useful they'll be in every realm of our life have a financial incentive to say those things and a profit motive, which is just important to keep in mind. I will be the first to say I want this reality, or parts of it anyway, as much as anybody. Like the idea of having a useful AI agent that could do a bunch of things for me, schedule meetings, file my expense reports, book my trips. Like, I'm here for it. Like, bring that to me now. It sounds amazing. But it's just, there's still so many things. Like, we're still at the point where I'm struggling to get Siri and Echo to carry out or answer very basic questions, or to find an email in my email that I know exists, but just the search function cannot recover for me. So I still think we're a ways off particularly from the agentic AI reality. I am encouraged by some recent progress in that space in particular. There have been new protocols coming out within the last year from Anthropic, their MCP Model Context Protocol, and Google's A2A Agent-to-Agent protocol, which should help bring that idea into reality. Those are the sorts of fundamental protocols that we need for systems to be able to interact with each other, for agents to be able to communicate and actually work with the other systems, software systems that we all use in our daily lives today. So that's great. It's good to see. I think there will be more of that kind of fundamental infrastructure work required. The other thing I'll just say briefly is while we're all focused on AI, there is a big other global shift taking place, which I'm really interested in, partly because I'm working on a project about this right now that's going to come out on Monday. And it is the shift in energy sources from fossil fuel-based energy sources to renewable energy sources. It's transforming economies. It is happening slowly, taking over the course of decades, really. But it will, change everything about the way that we're producing the things that we rely on every day, the ways that we get around. I think that's really interesting and exciting. There's a lot of technologies at play there as well, and interesting companies, working on solutions. And I think for me, imagine that reality, given the topic of this panel, 75 years from now, 100 years from now, when there is free, affordable, emissions-free sources of energy for everybody all over the world that would just unlock so many new capabilities for us. And it does, of course, relate back to AI as well, as we're seeing AI companies project huge amounts of new demand for electricity and energy for data centers in particular. And some of those tech companies will have an opportunity to accelerate that transition and have started to make investments into nuclear, for example, as well, which is good to see.
So, Peter, Amy laid out some very remarkable trends, right? And there's been a lot of technological progress, achievements. Are there stories we're telling ourselves that might lead us astray?
I think the most dangerous right now is the idea that unicorns are real. So in fantasy, unicorns had the power to heal everything. And in Silicon Valley, unicorn is the company that makes it big. It used to be $1 billion was the cross. Moving forward, I guess we'll probably categorize what it means to be a unicorn. Maybe it's 100 billion, maybe it's 1 trillion, whatever it is. But I think the challenge, the mythology, there's a twin mythology right now. One, AI is a game changer. It's revolutionary. It's all the adjectives that we can say about it and all the incredible positives that come out of it. But I do think there's a bit of an overplay in how it will solve all sorts of different inherent human and social problems. So it's we can think of all the headlines, or the pitch decks, how AI will solve hunger, how AI will solve war, how AI will solve poverty, how AI will solve inequality, will solve insert there, and you laid it out exactly right. It's not just that there's a vast difference between the promise and the actual capability of AI in a lot of different areas, but also it's recognizing that there's certain issues you just can't engineer your way out of. And so for example, I'm not confident on what certain parts of the world will look like 75 years out, but I do know that there'll still be government bureaucracy. There'll still be, we did a book, Burn-In, that depicted Washington, D.C. in the future, and it begins with a scene of traffic. So there's robot cars, but I think we'll still have traffic. Yeah. I unfortunately have bad news. I think we'll still have conflict. We'll still have poverty. So I think there's that overplay. And then maybe I'm going out on a limb, but I think there's a bit of a bubble right now. And maybe in the future, there's a lot of companies with a lot of exciting things going on. I just don't think the numbers bear out that they're all going to become unicorns. So I think that's the narrative that maybe sets us up for a fall, whether it's, as an investor, but more importantly, like people thinking of it from a policy angle.
Let's pull on that thread a bit. So, Amy, say we're in the year 2075, right? And so there's a lot of the two extremes of the narrative, right? On the one hand, job apocalypse, mass layoffs, and so forth. On the other side, the more of the tech utopia that Peter was describing. So, in order to take a more nuanced view of what our future could look like in 50 years from now, day-to-day life, at work, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of that, those two extremes. But where in the middle is sort of still anybody's guess when you're thinking that far out. I had a conversation last week with one of the co-founders of Cohere, Nick Frost, and I thought if you don't know Cohere, they're a Canadian-based AI model maker that is making large language models, but has focused more on enterprise uses, companies using their tools internally, and also governments. And so he was talking about his vision for what that might look like in the future, how we might work with AI. And to me, it resonated. And I will re-describe it in my own words. These are not his. But it was much more about, automating underlying processes, collaborating maybe with agents or AI assistants that go do things for us, whether it's, and just make our work a little bit easier and more seamless, whether that's, AI search or agents or what have you, but it's sort of more built into our workflows and almost like kind of boring ways. And it is like revolutionary in some way, but like in a kind of a more boring way. Like it's not AGI. That's not what they're working on. But to me, that is more closer to I think what the reality that I might see. And I think that is still like interesting progress and will be useful. But I still think it will take time as well. It's, we're sort of really quite still early days with this whole, the evolution of this technology. And even if you think about like the digital age, it didn't all happen at once. Like it took years for just companies to get their websites up and for those websites to get good enough that people wanted to actually like use them and go there, and that consumers found them helpful. And I think we're still kind of in those like early machinations of the AI phase, and might still be for a little while.
Are there specific human activities that you see as persevering, regardless of how much amazing progress we make in automation, et cetera?
Yeah, I do think things like creative aspects of people's work, brainstorming, maybe they will use AI more as an aid, but I do think there are some fundamental human things about trying to come up with ideas that resonate with other humans, that there's just something there that I think we will continue to do that. Decision making, I hope, will still, like, we will be free of a lot of tedious tasks, hopefully, but also, things that just take up our time or that are just sort of mentally tiring, but not for the right reasons. And maybe that would free us up to, have more brain power when it comes to actually making decisions that are important. I'm mostly selfishly just saying things that what I want that reality to look like. But I think it does make some sense that there's certain uniquely human abilities that we have, and that being more free for those would be wonderful. And there's a lot of other stuff that we all do in our day-to-day work still that is more just kind of, tedious, time-consuming tasks that we don't necessarily need to be spending our abundant creative resources and intellect on as people, or ideally.
Yeah. So, Peter, given this...
I want to hit that last question.
Okay.
It's a great one.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
There's this wonderful and wonderfully frustrating debate around when will AGI come, but it really turns on the vastly different definitions that people have of it, right? And so the definitions range from it's AI that's able to do multiple different tasks that require intelligence of some kind, all the way up to I can't remember which tycoon said it, but said that it's equivalent to 100 Nobel Prize winners. That's what AGI will be defined as. And that's where, I think about answering your question is I think if that's your definition, we'll never achieve it if it's across all the different Nobel Prizes. So I think it's, a strong potential that one day the Nobel Committee will have a debate over whether some kind of breakthrough in mathematics or chemistry or physics was, involving machines or maybe even totally machines. I have a hard time seeing in that time frame an AI winning the Nobel Prize for literature, right? And it's the same thing if we take it down to regular life. Think of a field like medicine. We've got, already robotic surgery, applying AI into diagnosis, you name it. I have yet to see anyone talk about the promise of AI as a pediatrician, because a pediatrician involves those human skills of not only dealing with kids, but dealing with parents that are worried. So I think, there's, how to put it, there's so much promise, there's so much possibility, but we also sometimes need to rein it in on where we think. And it hits what you were saying exactly. There's these roles that are inherently human, and I think creativity is one of those. Human connection is another one of those, that it's going to be very, very hard to come up with anything other than a simulation of creativity and human connection.
It's a fascinating point. So there's a lot of movies out there, books, and even what we've seen here in the news right now. So are we actually preparing ourselves for the future you're describing, or are we setting ourselves up for a shock?
If we're not ready for the moment when the robots come for us, shame on us, right? It's been in every story going back to literally the very first use of the word robot. And yet, probably we're still going to be surprised. And you get, all these wonderful stories that, come out every day. There was one literally today about someone, I forget, I probably shouldn't name which company, that, realized that it was allowing bioweapons to be potentially the recipe for them to be generated. That's the kind of thing that you can red team. Maybe we should put those guardrails in before. But no, I think, to be more serious, I think the part that we're in the United States, and I know it's been a topic of discussion across this, I think we're still not fully preparing for what it means for a variety of different industries. We have job creation, but we also have job loss. As you very rightly put it, it doesn't play out in a month. It plays out over years, even decades. It's a new industrial revolution. There's winners, there's losers. It plays out in among individuals, among companies, among geographic regions. And I think we're not facing the full effect of what that transition is going to be like. And somewhat related to that, there is most definitely a war for talent in lots of different areas. And our current policies are, again, what's your adjective you want to use? Non-optimal, dysfunctional, in some cases self-defeating. And I have genuine concern that the approaches that allowed the United States to win the last technology races, the space race, the computing race, we're in certain areas working to the opposite of what gave us the best universities, gave us the top scientists. And so, I think that's what this program is all about. What makes us competitive, what made us competitive. And there's a number of areas on that human talent side that we're being non-optimal, all the way down to literally shooting ourselves in the foot.
Amy, you have your finger on the pulse of near-term developments and potential breakthroughs in a wide range of emerging technologies. Are there specific things that you believe are particularly promising to accelerate some of the trends that you both have been describing, perhaps mitigating some of the risks and downsides that Peter is laying out? Like, what are you seeing right around the corner that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the large language models are continuing to get more powerful, new capabilities. For us, we around this time last year, we were talking about generative video and how that was, going to kind of reach a new level of impressiveness. I think it's been interesting to see the Sora app come out and some of the early reactions to that. So I think there will be all these new ways to kind of generate new media and new images, videos, audio. And I think just seeing what people do with that is going to be really interesting because I think we're still kind of figuring it out, like what we all want to do with that or what we find it useful for in our personal lives, in our work lives. Anecdotally, I feel like I hear more from people about how they're using it in their personal lives, which is kind of interesting and like really kind of fun and creative ways sometimes. Like somebody was telling me about taking family vacation photos from a trip they'd just gone on and then having one of the models, I forget which one, but generate coloring book pages of those same photos so that their kids could kind of relive the vacation as they were like doing the coloring book version of their own vacation. I was like, that's so cool. And I would have loved that as a kid. So I think those kinds of things are really interesting just to see now that we have these models, such a variety, so widely available. As far as some of the concerns and what might mitigate against those, I'm in the information ecosystem, so I certainly think quite a bit about that. And I think, there is a lot of work just trying to identify what is AI generated out there and what's not, whether that's a watermark or something like a personhood credential that could actually, verify that the entity on the other end of your interaction is a real human. That work, I think some combination of those things will likely be more needed for us just to be able to kind of navigate our own information ecosystem responsibly, which I think most people still want to do.
Let's switch gears a bit and let's talk about power conflict. So fiction has given us a lot of powerful images of AI-enabled warfare, Skynet, robot armies. But Peter, in your mind, what is a more plausible future, less cinematic, on how AI will reshape global conflict, geopolitics in the next 50 years? How do you see it playing out?
So there's a couple of trends that are playing out in the visions of AI and its application to the hardware side of robotics to be aware of. One is the strong interest among all the different great powers in the technology. And I think the key breakthrough moment for China, as an example, was when AI did so well at the strategy game Go. And it was not that what they remark upon, what their generals remark upon, was not that it won at a game of strategy that's been with us for thousands of years. It's that it won by coming up with moves that no human had yet utilized in thousands of years. It was a combination of moves. And so that was the sense that it's not merely about just using the robots. It's coming up with what in military terms we would call new doctrine, new business approaches to it. I think a second lesson coming out of what we've seen in places like Ukraine is how the math of war is changing. The dominant technologies, I referenced the space race, the atomic age. Those had incredibly high barriers to entry. It took a Manhattan Project to create. Only a couple of nations could not just gain those weapons. Only a couple of nations could effectively use them. Even now, if you parked a aircraft carrier off of Yemen and said to the Houthis, here's an aircraft carrier, have it, they wouldn't be able to use it. They are now able to fly mass numbers of drones. And so the quantitative scale of the numbers is something to be aware of. And again, that's something both a military, but a company like an Amazon is when it's thinking about delivery. Is it going to happen with big 18-wheelers, or is it going to happen with large numbers of small drones? There's another part of what a war might look like is, and or daily life, which is the vulnerability side of all of these technologies. So does day one of a conflict look like drones flying in AI, or does it look like nothing turns on because of cyber attacks or electronic warfare, loss of space-based communication? So it could be that the conflict is non-kinetic. I will lay it out this way. That's the parallel to sci-fi. The Alien movie series, I'm not going to say there's aliens, but the advertising, sorry, one quick diversion. I do think the recent depiction of life in Earth, in alien Earth, some parts of it were really cool. You know, this idea of large tech corporations, each with very different visions. Is it AI? Is it robotics? Is it melding of human? Tech corporations with large political power. I do think that's really cool. But what I was going to go to is the advertising for the original Alien movie was the idea that in space no one can hear you scream. It could also be that the next conflict is completely quiet because it's taking place in space, because it's taking place in cyber warfare.
That's a fascinating point. Amy, are you seeing any real-world developments that would suggest to you that we're headed in that direction?
Well, I mean, AI has been used, computer vision, for example, for a number of years, and like Project Maven, looking at satellite imagery or drone footage to find targets or look at sites of interest or identify kind of movements. But we have reported, one of our reporters, senior AI reporter, James O'Donnell, he's written this year on a few other potential applications of generative AI that I've thought have been particularly interesting. He writes a weekly newsletter on AI called The Algorithm that you should all sign up for as well. But he has written, for example, about a marine exercise to use generative AI and large language models to synthesize a lot of non-classified information in foreign countries in which the Marines were operating to try and identify potential threats. So things like news articles or social media posts, and just a huge volume of those that no one human could ever really comb through and translate effectively in real time. He's also written about this kind of related potential new problem known as classification by compilation, which is the idea that maybe if your adversary has a large language model at their disposal, they would be able to collect a lot of unclassified information that you have put out over time and identify patterns in your strategy, or pick up on things, make connections that, again, no one human or even a team of humans would be able to do on their own. So I think that's kind of an interesting new problem. And then to Peter's point about autonomous drones and armed drones, drone swarms, I think that is a major concern for many militaries now. And there's some interesting new fiction-worthy defenses being developed for those, using big microwave arrays and lasers to try and combat these. So I think that's also quite interesting on the defense side as well.
So to wrap up our conversation, I'd love for each of you to tell us what your single biggest hope and aspiration is for an AI-infused world in 2075, but also what your biggest fear is. So, Peter, would you like to go first? Yeah.
So you asked us to connect it to fiction. The movie WALL-E. So in WALL-E, the hope is, they were the people, the humans within it, were living in what we would characterize as a utopia, at almost from a societal level all the way down to a personal level. We're spacefaring. It appears that poverty's been eliminated. all the way down to, your personal life. You're sitting all the time in these wonderful, comfortable chairs, and food is brought to you. Life for the humans in WALL-E seemed really awesome in a lot of different ways. And that's why it was such a great, children's stories have these lessons within them. I think, it obviously had warnings, dystopian elements of it, and connecting to the questions that you brought up of, the effect on the environment of industrialization, to how we connect to each other through these technologies, through the promise of agentic AI. Does it supplant for friendships and relationships? So I think WALL-E's, it probably encapsulates best that twin, utopia and dystopia in one.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I think particularly the first 30 minutes of that movie is some of the best cinema that I've ever seen. It's wonderful. So, Amy, how about you? Biggest hope and biggest fear for 2075?
Well, I think my biggest hope is that we all get more time to focus on the things that we care most about. I really, time is our greatest resource. It's where life happens, the way that we spend our time, the things we spend our time on, the people we spend our time with. I think people, if they have more agency over that, and just have more time back for themselves, they will be happier and healthier. So that is my hope. My greatest fear, I think, is that people feel disenfranchised by this technology. It is complicated. There are a lot of things being said about it. There's so much hype. It can feel easy to just kind of throw your hands up and be like, I don't know, But I don't want us to cede the decisions over this technology to a handful of people, tech leaders, Silicon Valley, some people here in DC. I think it's important that that people, the public, stays engaged in learning about this technology and feeling a sense of ownership over it, and the fact that we can make smart decisions about how we deploy it, what we allow, what we want to prioritize the use of this technology for. If people lost that, that would be, I think, my greatest fear.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps day one of AI Unlocked. Please join me in thanking Peter and Amy. So tomorrow, it's going to be a phenomenal day. Please come back. We are going to have more amazing discussions like this. We are going to have performances, tech demos. It's a very family-friendly event, so bring your kids, your nephews, your nieces, grandkids. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Appreciate it.